Afternoon, and welcome to Dave's Dugout. I'm Dave Schimpf, the operator of Dave's Dugout podcast. Uh, I've got a sign behind me called Dave's Dugout. I don't light it up for those who haven't been here haven't been on lately, and but it's back there. It's shape of a plate, and I don't light it up, of course, because, like I said, it's a little bit too bright back there. However, as you can see behind me, I've got a lot of memorabilia. I've got masks. I've got softballs up there. I've got a couple photos and things like that. Lots of memorabilia. Last week, I went through a couple softballs I had, one 12-inch and one 14-inch, and the 14-inch is right here. If those of you who missed it, but that's a 14-inch softball, and so that's what I showed last week. I was going to show some memorabilia this week, and maybe even talk about the pitching rule for Federation, but I decided to wait until Thursday when my next podcast will be before I do that. So today I'm going to just talk about softball, and that's all we talk about on this podcast is softball. I have a toll-free number. It's 833-7-DUGOUT, 833-7-DUGOUT. So if you want to call in, ask some questions, just chat, whatever you want to do, I'm welcome to it. Just call in. My phone is usually open from noon to 6, okay? I also have a mug. I've been showing this a couple times. Here it is. Dave's Dugout on there. I sell those for $10 whenever I have some guests, and I haven't had any yet, but I'm going to have some soon. I'm going to give each guest a mug, so just wanted to let you know about those things. I wrote a book called Time and Place. It's a history of softball. And it's also a biography of Bill Humphrey. Time and Place is actually about Bill. He was a famous umpire, American Softball Association president, and many other accolades he had. But he was basically a Hall of Fame softball umpire who actually helped reorganize, I should say, Michigan Softball Association back in the 50s and 60s. So this is a book about Bill, but it's a very interesting first part is about softball. So I'm going to go over some things in here today I thought you might be interested in reading about and hearing about, okay? So that's why I got this book here today. Last week, I talked about how the Depression helped softball in a way that few people would realize. You wouldn't think during the Depression of the 30s that softball would be helped, but it really was because there was a lot of unemployment. Like 6-7 million people were unemployed, and so they needed something to do. And softball was one of the things they could do. Yeah, it was basically an indoor game, but it was also played outdoors. So it was really started exploding outdoors. So people were just organizing teams and playing softball. During the Depression, there was something called the New Deal. Franklin Roosevelt, the president, kicked off the New Deal in a way to maybe help get out of the Depression. And so a lot of federal dollars was spent on the New Deal. One thing that I found interesting was there was numerous athletic facilities were built during the New Deal that were spent to help the people. And actually, it was $750 million was spent just on athletic facilities. $750 million. So of that, 5,898 fields athletic fields were actually built and facilitated across the United States. That's amazing. So in between 1934 and 36, the recreation programs were doubled to over 2,109 um, recreation departments, so to speak, all across the country. So softball was one of these recreation programs, along with other things. They actually built swimming pools and some other facilities, but a lot of athletic fields were, were built back then. Um, and I would say between I might have misspoke on the 750 million. It might have been the entire cost of the New Deal, but it was 27 million to 42 million dollars was spent on recreation programs. Okay, and other sports, but softball was one of the big ones because it just baseball, of course, did too, but softball was one of the big ones that was helped under the New Deal. And that's amazing that that happened during the Great Depression. So I'm going to cover a few things in the book today. That if you want to purchase this book, by the way, it's for $20. Um, I'll, you can that's the list price of the book. You can buy this book, and for an extra $5, I'll ship it off to you. So you can contact me either by that phone number or by uh, my page, which is Dave Umpire at AOL.com, my web page. Dave Umpire, DAVEUMPIRE at AOL.com. If you contact me, uh, we'll figure out ways to get you the book, okay? But I wanted to cover a few things today that are in this book that you might find very interesting. The year 1936, for one, was really helped the game of softball. The national tournament was once again held in Chicago. They call it the World Tournament, but it was a national tournament. And Kodak Park team from Rochester, New York, won it all. Okay, and that was the first time a team from outside of Chicago area or the Midwest uh, actually won the national tournament that started in 1933. Uh, Ed Fisher was one of the founders, along with McCall, and he worked for the Chicago American newspaper. The Chicago American newspaper was sponsoring these tournaments, and after a while, it was expensive, and they were actually in the hole, and they kept trying to dig their way out somehow by having tournaments, but it just got deeper and deeper, uh, and they were trying to figure out ways to pay off the tournaments. Uh, Actually, in 1934, the American Softball Association was formed by Fisher and Pauley, and then in 1934 also the Michigan Amateur Softball Association um, joined the ASA. So those are the things that happened in 1934. They were in the red by $7,547 in 1934. So it started to get pretty expensive. ASA estimated that 92,454 teams were playing 1,850,000 softball games in America before 185 million people. There was actually 185 million spectators that watched the game of softball. That's how popular it became. Uh, they used a 45-foot diamond, was replaced but with a 60-foot diamond. But the women's team, they played on a 45-foot diamond. So it was still used in both ways. The pitching distance was moved to 40 feet. Okay. That's how it was back then. 1934 also saw another type of pitch other than the widely accepted figure eight. Figure eight was when they went behind their back, kind of did a little loop behind their back and brought it forward, and that's how the fast pitch was done. But they had crafty pitchers such as Harold Shifty Gears, Harry Kraft, George Manrose, Carl Two Gun Hunt, Casey Drop, and Cam Ecclestone were some of the best at the game back then. During the World Championship game, Paul Watson of Arizona introduced the windmill pitch. Now that's when it really became fast, the windmill pitch. This pitch caused confusion with batters that didn't know when he would deliver the pitch, because I think back then it never stated how many times you could windmill it. So you could probably maybe windmill it 2-3 times if they wanted to, kind of throw the batter off. So it was difficult. He knew just how many rotations he would use before actually pitching the ball. Also, Watson at times would start behind the pitching plate and step forward, placing a foot on the pitching plate before starting the windup. This is kind of walking into the pitch, which is illegal today. It wasn't long before rules put in place allowing for only one windmill rotation. Every pitcher realized he can't rely on the fast pitch to win games, so they developed other pitches like the changeup, a curveball, a drop, and things like that. But these are all different pitches that were used in that type of game. All right. Seth Whitmore was the author of a softball magazine back then, and he added that it was called softball, and he added in the game, and pitching the windup may consist of not more than one upward in front and over, or one downward and backward swing of the pitching arm. The ball shall be delivered on the first forward swing of the pitching arm. It is believed that the 1936 rule changes will put more action in the game and create an even greater following. So that's when they started restricting how many windmills were going to be thrown and such and such. Okay. Now, in 1936 is when unemployment became pretty bad. And so a lot of the sports started to drop off, believe it or not. It wasn't just softball wasn't, but sports such as golf, for instance, and I'm trying to think, football, baseball, National Football League, and baseball actually was starting to drop in attendance because people couldn't afford to go to the games. Sports like bowling and softball were exploding, but not those games. It was determined that the cost of the game was just a little bit too much, and I would say attendance, according to what they described in here, dropped off by a good 20%. And amazingly enough, these are when some other things were developed to try to instill a little bit more attendance for these games. This is when the Orange Bowl, for instance, from football, New Orleans followed with the Sugar Bowl in 35, and then the El Paso Bowl, the Sun Bowl, and the Cotton Bowl were all came about in 36 and 37. Now, I know I said I was only going to talk about softball, but this is kind of related to it because these are the things that took off as they tried to draw more fans into the game. Okay. And actually in 1936 was when Cooperstown came about and the Hall of Fame for baseball. So a lot of things happened during these years when the Great Depression was on. Softball continued to grow as a recreation sport, as did ASA. A 32-page publication called Softballs and Strikes was introduced in 37 that highlighted the national championship. The publication discontinued in 1942, but revitalized in 47 with the present name of Balls and Strikes. And that publication is still in operation today. In 1937, the ASA Men's Championship was highlighted by the shortest fast-pitch softball game in history, 27 minutes. Just 27 minutes to play a 7-inning softball game. Norbert Cyclone Warken, pitching for Curly Clothing Company of Covington, Kentucky, struck out 14 batters and allowed only one hit while defeating Denver, Colorado. Curly finished fifth in the tournament, but Warken struck out 66 batters in just 4 games and pitched 2 no-hitters. National championships in Chicago are carried play-by-play over the radio, a first for the game of softball. So just think about that. These are all things that occurred in 1937. A 27-minute game. That's absolutely amazing. And he pitched four games with 66 strikeouts and 2 no-hitters. The championship tournaments proved to be quite popular with the players and fans, but they still weren't making a profit. The ASA once again had to acquire financial assistance from Chicago American, which paid off the $1,062 deficit. This newspaper actually spent close to $30,000 to help stage the first 6 tournaments in Chicago from 1933 to 38. Back then, $30,000 for a newspaper was pretty expensive. 1938 was described as the greatest season in the history of softball, according to the inaugural edition of Softball magazine, published in January of 1939. Over 100 million fans attended games, and the World Championship games in Chicago drew teams from all over the country and crowned the Polars team of Cincinnati and Krieg's women's team from Alameda, California as champions. The Krieg's team became the first team from outside the Midwest to win the championship since it began in 1933. That was the women's team. Hundreds of new facilities were built and thousands of teams organized to play the great game. They had some new rules in 1938. They added the pitcher must release the ball simultaneous with a forward step. Penalty was an illegal pitch. He added a new section 9. It's an illegal pitch if a pitcher continues the windup after taking a step towards the batter. Okay. They added to a first paragraph, any foul tip is caught as a strike, and the ball remains in play, whether it's a first, second, or third strike. And a bunted fly ball should not be considered an infield fly. A ball remains in play when a runner leaves a play too soon. Now that's strange when you think about that they actually had that in play back then, and just recently that was added in NCAA. A base runner having acquired the right to run to first base is to be called out if he runs to any other first base. Now, back in the early part of the game, they actually could run to third base rather than first base. There was no rule. If they wanted to run to third base rather than first base, they could do it and run in reverse order. It was crazy, but they actually had to put that rule in to prohibit that from happening. And they actually put another thing in called the protest rule, which allowed teams to protest. This created a real mess in a couple games where the protest was instituted, and I can talk about that another time. But they actually could have a protest. This was also in 1938. This was also the first year the ASA reported a profit. Income was reported at $9,573.94, and expenses were $9,339.11. showing cash on hand is $234.83. Wow. Now you got to remember, this is a nonprofit organization. However, you're allowed to make a profit as long as it's spent on the game. So that's how it was allowed. And here's an interesting fact. In 1937, a retired Babe Ruth, now he was retired from the game, accepted a challenge to face a 25-year-old softball pitcher named John Cannonball Baker at a charity event. The great Babe swung and missed on 15 consecutive pitches. He would become the first of many major league ball players that would attempt to hit a fastball. I can even mention this now, I guess. Jenny Finch one time. Jenny Finch was a famous female softball pitcher, and she showed up at the All-Star game and exhibition type, not during the game, but during that weekend, and pitched against Albert Pujols, great first baseman for the Cardinals. And she struck him out, even telling him what pitch she was going to throw ahead of time. The rise ball, the fastball, the changeup. And she still managed to struck him out, but he did fall off one pitch. And he was really excited about that. And Barry Bonds was supposed to bat next, Barry Bonds Jr., and he was supposed to bat next. He refused. He says, I'm not going to make a fool of myself. And he refused to step in the batter's box. So that was kind of a funny story. Also, the Michigan Amateur Softball Association began, like I said, in 1934. They were one of the first states to actually join the ASA. So that was very important to bring in Michigan because they had a lot of teams playing. And it was apparent that they needed other states to join in. I'm sure Minnesota was one, along with Wisconsin. But Michigan was a pioneer in the organization, the establishment of districts and regions, and today is still one of the few states that conducts softball tournament competition in many sport classes. I'm going to speak a little bit about the Michigan Softball Association because they actually constructed a softball building at Rainey Park in Lansing. Now, Rainey Park is still being played on that park today. It's quite a bit different, of course, but the first building was built at Rainey Park. And in my book here, I'm going to show you some of the construction that was being done then. As you can see, I will hold it a little closer to the camera. And that was the first building. It was built behind the backstop. It's in use today. That's where the play-by-play is, and also the scorekeeper, official scorekeeper, is back there in that building. It was one of the first softball buildings in America, according to the State Journal of Lansing. So just wanted to let you know about that. So Seth Whitmore, who was the editorial writer for the Lansing Journal, was the first state commissioner and the organizer of MASA, and also created the newsletter Softball. There were no district meets, and all the teams were invited to come to Lansing for the state finals. 49 teams from 16 towns responded to play in the very first state tournament. Whitmore started playing softball himself, and it was introduced in St. Petersburg, Florida. So that's where before he moved to Michigan. So he did play softball. One key thing I'd like to bring out was how probably go back. I'm going to go back maybe one page. Nope. Actually, Michigan helped break the color barrier in softball. There was a national tournament played in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was for the Negroes, and as they called them back then. And there was a team that was very famous in Michigan called the Big Six. They were all black, and they were allowed to play in our state tournaments. Now, back then, you have to admit, you have to remember that was very, very, really eye opener to allow that to happen. But the Big Six was an all black team, and they kind of dominated in a way. They were really, really good. And they actually, in that picture, they showed them holding a tournament trophy. So just to let you know that was kind of a breaking the color barrier, and they allowed that team to play. So just wanted to bring all these things to light in case you didn't realize them, but they're all in my book. Again, it's called Time and Place. Very interesting what I actually went out and did a lot of research on that you're not going to find in many books. So this is my book. Again, if you want to email me at daveumpire@aol.com, call me at my toll-free number, 8337-DUGOUT. I will get you a copy for the list price of $20 and just $5 shipping. So please take advantage of this if you want to, okay? My next podcast on Thursday, I would really like to cover the pitching rule in the high school softball. There's a lot of things that we could cover, and I think I have some videos. In fact, I know I have some videos that would be helpful. So we'll show some videos, and we'll talk about the pitching rule, okay? I've got the new rule books here and the case book. So we'll go into a little bit of depth because I know there's a lot of umpires, a lot of teams, coaches, players that probably would be interested in covering this pitching rule. I know the federation in different states probably already cover it, but it doesn't hurt to do it here also. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and hope to see you on Thursday, probably at 4 o'clock again. Okay, so maybe I'll take that back. It'll probably be at 3 o'clock. So look for it at 3 o'clock on Thursday. Everybody have a great day. Think spring, just 4 days away. On Friday is the first day of spring. Have a great one and enjoy yourself.